the silent exodus. The Chamber of Universal Accord had witnessed countless historic moments across its 5,000-year existence. Today would add another chapter to that legacy. Supreme Coordinator Vex of the Galactic Federation stood before the assembled representatives of 47 species, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's ambient light into dancing patterns across the walls. "The motion has been carried by overwhelming majority," Vex announced, his voice resonating through translation devices in every language spoken within Federation space. Effective immediately, humanity is expelled from the Galactic Federation. All human citizens must vacate Federation territory within 2 standard cycles. All treaties are dissolved. All agreements are void. The chamber erupted in approving sounds. Chirps, clicks, harmonics, and electromagnetic pulses filled the space. For 6 decades, humanity had been a source of constant friction. They arrived too eagerly, learned too quickly, and spread through Federation society with unsettling ease. They asked too many questions, proposed too many changes, and never seemed to understand their place as newcomers to a civilization that had existed for millennia. Now, finally, the problem was solved. In the diplomatic gallery, Ambassador Marcus Chin stood motionless. At 62 years old, he had served as humanity's chief representative for nearly 20 years. He had navigated political storms, negotiated treaties, and defended his species against countless accusations. He had witnessed humanity's slow integration into galactic society, seen human communities establish themselves on dozens of worlds, watched human specialists become essential parts of Federation infrastructure. Now he watched it all come to an end. But Marcus did not protest. He did not demand reconsideration or threaten consequences. He did not even look surprised. Instead, he simply nodded, gathered his data tablet, and walked toward the exit with measured steps. "Ambassador Chin," Vex had called out, a note of confusion coloring his translated words. "Do you have no statement? No defense of your species?" Marcus paused at the doorway and turned back. His weathered face showed no anger, no desperation, only a strange calmness that somehow made the chamber feel colder. "What would be the point, Supreme Coordinator?" Marcus replied quietly. "The Federation has made its decision. We respect democratic processes. We will comply with your directive." "You accept this so easily?" pressed Counselor Thrain, a reptilian diplomat known for his antagonism toward humanity. "No demands? No appeals?" Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "We have learned much during our time here, Counselor. Perhaps the most important lesson was knowing when to stop asking for acceptance from those who will never grant it." The words hung in the air, their meaning ambiguous enough to avoid offense but pointed enough to sting. Before anyone could respond, Marcus nodded respectfully and left the chamber. His footsteps echoed down the marble corridor, gradually fading into silence. Within hours, the news spread across all Federation worlds. Networks broadcast endless analysis, experts debated the implications, and public opinion generally approved of the decision. Humanity had always been too ambitious, too numerous, too different. Their removal would restore balance to Federation society. What surprised everyone was a human response, or rather, the lack of one. There were no riots in the streets of human settlements, no angry protests at Federation offices, no desperate petitions or legal challenges. Instead, something far more unsettling occurred. Humanity simply began to leave. On the industrial world of Keter Prime, Station Manager Velix arrived at the orbital manufacturing facility to find half his human workforce absent. The assembly lines that produced quantum processors stood silent and still. When Velix accessed his messages, he found formal resignation letters waiting, each professionally worded and polite. "Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to Federation industry. We have appreciated our time on Keter Prime. Effective immediately, we are resigning our positions. Best regards to your continued success." Velix tried to contact the missing workers. Their communication codes were already disconnected. He dispatched security to their residential sectors. The apartments were empty, cleaned, and organized, as if the occupants had spent weeks preparing for departure rather than hours. The same scenario repeated itself across Kethra Prime and throughout Federation space. Human doctors and nurses left hospitals, filing detailed transition reports before they departed. Human engineers vacated power stations, leaving comprehensive documentation of all systems. Human teachers disappeared from schools, having already recorded final lessons for their students. Everywhere, the pattern was identical. No chaos, no abandonment, just organized, efficient withdrawal. On the medical station orbiting Helios Secundus, Chief Physician Mara found herself staring at empty workstations where human medical specialists had operated for decades. Dr. Sarah Zimmerman had run the genetic analysis department for 30 years. Dr. Kenji Tanaka had pioneered new surgical techniques that saved thousands of lives annually. Nurse practitioner Elena Ruiz had trained entire generations of medical personnel, all gone within a single day. How is this possible? Marat demanded of her administrative staff. How could they leave so quickly? Where did they go? Her assistant, a young Hellion named Vorix, pulled up departure records. 12 transport vessels left the station yesterday evening. Physician Maroff. They filed all necessary documentation, paid all outstanding fees, and departed through authorized channels. Everything was perfectly legal. But where were those vessels going? Vorix hesitated. The flight plans list various destinations in unclaimed space, beyond Federation borders. Unclaimed space? There is nothing out there but dead systems and resource-poor worlds. Why would they go there? Vorix had no answer. Neither did anyone else. Across the Federation, officials began to notice disturbing patterns. The human evacuation was not panicked or rushed. It was precise, coordinated, and clearly planned long in advance. Departure schedules synchronized perfectly across thousands of light years. Transport vessels appeared exactly when and where they were needed. No ship was overloaded, no departure was delayed, no human was left behind. Military strategist Carvon of the Federation Defense Initiative studied the movement patterns with growing unease. He had spent his career analyzing fleet movements, logistics, and strategic planning. What he saw in the human evacuation was mastery that rivaled the finest military operations he had ever witnessed. This level of coordination requires years of planning, he reported to his superiors. They have evacuation routes established, staging areas prepared, and supply chains in place. They knew this was coming long before we voted on it. Impossible! Dismiss High Admiral Corvin. The expulsion vote was classified. How could humans have known? Carvon displayed a complex network of data on his tactical screen. Perhaps they did not know specifically when it would happen, but they clearly understood it would happen eventually. Look at these financial records. Human-owned businesses have been gradually liquidating assets for the past 3 years. Property transfers, resource sales, technology licenses, all handled quietly and legally. By the time we voted to expel them, they had already converted most of their physical holdings into portable wealth. That suggests, Corvin said slowly, that they were preparing to leave even without our expulsion order, or that they were preparing for the inevitability of it. The implications troubled Corvin deeply, but he pushed the thoughts aside. Humanity was leaving. The Federation was rid of a problematic species. Nothing else mattered. On the border world of Threshold Station, Commander Arxel watched the last wave of human departures with conflicted feelings. For 15 years, human security personnel had served alongside his own forces, maintaining order in one of the most challenging postings in Federation space. They had been reliable, professional, and surprisingly effective. Now they were filing past his checkpoint in orderly lines, carrying personal belongings and nothing more. He recognized many faces. Lieutenant Chun, who had saved his life during a pirate raid 5 years ago. Officer Kowalski, who had trained his son in advanced tactical protocols. Dr. Patel, who had counseled him through the grief of losing his bondmate. Commander, Lieutenant Chun said, stopping at the checkpoint, "Thank you for your service alongside us. It has been an honor." Arxel struggled with words. "Lieutenant, I want you to know that not all of us supported the expulsion. Many of us valued your contributions." Chin smiled sadly. "We know, Commander, but sometimes a majority decides for everyone, and the minority must accept that decision." He extended his hand in the human gesture of farewell. Take care, Threshold. We built good systems here. They should serve you well. Arxil clasped the human's hand. Where will you go? Home, Chen replied simply. But you were born here. This was your home. Chen's smile faded. No, Commander. We were never allowed to truly make this our home. We were always guests who had overstayed our welcome. Now we're going to a place where we belong. Before Arxil could ask what he meant, Chen nodded respectfully and walked through the checkpoint. Arxil watched him board the transport vessel with the last group of humans from Threshold Station. The ship's engines powered up with a distinctive hum, and moments later, it disappeared into the darkness beyond Federation space. Arxil stood at the viewport for a long time after the ship vanished. Something about the encounter troubled him, though he could not identify exactly what. Chen had seemed almost relieved to be leaving, not defeated, not angry, but free, as if leaving the Federation was not a punishment but a liberation. The two-cycle deadline approached its conclusion. Across 47 worlds, hundreds of stations, and thousands of settlements, the final humans departed. They left behind immaculate facilities, detailed documentation, and troubling silence. No tearful goodbyes, no dramatic final statements, no promises to return. They simply left. On the final day, Ambassador Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the transport vessel Determination, watching Federation space recede behind him. Around him, the last diplomatic staff gathered, and through the viewport, other transport ships formed a convoy heading away from everything they had built over 6 decades. Sir, his assistant James Rodriguez said quietly, it is done. Every human has evacuated Federation territory. We are the last ship to depart. Marcus nodded slowly. Send the final message to Supreme Coordinator Vexith. Standard diplomatic courtesy. Thank them for the opportunity to participate in Federation society. Wish them well in their future endeavors. Nothing more. Nothing more. They made their choice. Now we make ours. Rodriguez transmitted the message and then pulled up a navigation display. Course is set for the corridor. Transit time is 3 weeks at current speed. Marcus studied the display, noting the dozens of ships traveling with them and the hundreds more that had already preceded them into uncharted space. Beyond Federation borders, beyond the map systems, beyond the reach of those who had rejected them, humanity was converging on coordinates that only they knew. 3 weeks, Marcus repeated. After 60 years of asking for acceptance, 3 weeks to reach the future we built without their permission or knowledge. Do you think they suspect? Rodriguez asked. Marcus allowed himself a genuine smile for the first time in weeks. They are beginning to. But by the time they understand what we have accomplished, it will be far too late to matter. Behind them, the lights of Federation space grew dimmer. Ahead, in the darkness that had been dismissed as empty and worthless, something waited. Something vast. Something powerful. Something that would change every calculation the Galactic Federation had ever made about humanity's place in the galaxy. But the Federation did not know that yet. They were too busy celebrating their victory and congratulating themselves on solving their human problem. They would learn the truth soon enough. The awakening. The celebrations lasted exactly 11 days. For 11 days, Federation media praised expulsion as a necessary correction. Politicians gave speeches about cultural preservation and maintaining civilization standards. Social networks buzzed with relief that the disruptive human presence had finally been removed. The consensus was clear. The Federation had made the right decision. On the 12th day, the first system began to fail. It started small. A medical diagnostic machine on Kethra Prime malfunctioned, and when technicians tried to repair it, they discovered they did not understand how it worked. The quantum processor assembly lines remained silent because no one knew the precise calibration sequences the human engineers had used. Agricultural monitoring stations reported errors that made no sense to the analysts who had always relied on human interpretation of the data. Small problems. Fixable problems. Nothing to worry about. Then the problems multiplied. On Helios, Secundus Medical Station, Chief Physician Maroff faced a crisis. A patient presented with symptoms that required genetic sequencing analysis, a routine procedure performed thousands of times annually. But the genetic analysis department stood empty and silent. Someone must know how to operate this equipment, Maroth insisted to her staff. The humans use it every day. They operated it. Physician Maroth, Vorts explained nervously. We never learned procedures. The equipment interface is incomprehensible without specialized training that only the humans provided. That is absurd. We are the most advanced medical civilization in the galaxy. We invented genetic medicine. We invented the theories, Vorts corrected gently. The humans developed the practical applications. They built the equipment, designed the interfaces, and performed the analyses. We reviewed their findings and approved them, but we never actually learned to do the work ourselves. Maroth stared at the silent machines that had always hummed with activity when Dr. Zimmerman operated them. Contact the Human Medical Association. Offer them contracts to return, whatever price they want. We have tried, Physician Maroth. All human communication channels are offline. We cannot locate them. The patient died 3 days later. He was the first of many. Supreme Coordinator Vexith convened an emergency session of the Federation Council. The chamber that had celebrated humanity's expulsion now buzzed with anxious energy. Reports flooded in from every sector of Federation space. Infrastructure failures, economic disruptions, medical emergencies, all tied to the absence of human workers. This is temporary, Vexith insisted, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. We simply need time to train replacements and relearn the systems humans operated. With respect, Supreme Coordinator, Counselor Yald of the Engineering Guild spoke up. It is not that simple. The humans did not merely operate systems. They designed most of the infrastructure we depend upon. They created the systems, wrote the code, and engineered the solutions to problems we never bothered to understand because they handled everything so efficiently. Are you saying we are helpless without them? Counselor Thrain demanded. That is impossible. We managed perfectly well before humans arrived. Did we? Yalith challenged. Our efficiency increased by 47% in the 6 decades since human integration. Medical mortality rates dropped by 33%. Economic productivity rose by 51%. We attributed those improvements to our own advancement, but now that humans are gone, we are discovering how much of that progress was actually their contribution. The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to acknowledge what Yalith was suggesting, that the Federation had not been teaching humans how to participate in advanced civilization, but rather that humans had been quietly improving a civilization that had grown complacent and stagnant. I want a full assessment, Vexith ordered. Every department, every industry, every system. I want to know exactly what we have lost with humanity's departure and how quickly we can recover. The assessment took 2 weeks to compile. The results were devastating. Humans had comprised 8% of the Federation's total population, but they had held 73% of all maintenance positions, 61% of all logistics coordination roles, 54% of all systems engineering positions, and 42% of all medical support functions. They had not competed for prestigious roles of leadership, research, or policymaking. Instead, they had quietly taken every essential job that Federation citizens consider beneath their dignity. And when they left, they had taken all of that expertise with them. The Federation's economy contracted by 38% in the first month. Medical facilities reported a 47% increase in mortality rates. Transportation networks experienced 23% more delays and failures. Communication systems degraded by 31%. Manufacturing output dropped by 42%. The numbers painted a devastating picture. The Federation had not expelled a troublesome minority. They had amputated their own essential organs. We must contact them, High Admiral Corvin stated during a closed military briefing. Offer them anything. Full citizenship, equal representation on the Council, whatever they demand. We need them back. We cannot contact them, military strategist Carvon replied grimly. All human communication networks are offline. We do not know where they went. They filed flight plans. Follow those. We did. The flight plans led to empty systems in unclaimed space. No human settlements, no infrastructure, nothing. The flight plans were false. Corvin's spines bristled with frustration. Then search. Deploy scout ships to every system within range. Find them. The search began immediately. Scout vessels departed from every border station, spreading out into the regions beyond Federation space. For 3 weeks, they found nothing. The vast darkness between stars held no sign of human presence, no energy signatures, no communication signals, no evidence that 60 million humans had passed through these regions. Then Scout Captain Varel made a discovery that changed everything. Varel had been searching a region the Federation had designated as Zone 447Q, an area of supposedly resource-poor systems with no strategic or economic value. His sensors detected something impossible, a massive energy signature that dwarfed anything his ship could produce. Navigation. Confirm these readings, Varel ordered, his mandibles clicking with agitation. Confirm, Captain. Energy output equivalent to a small star. Source is in the 4th orbital position of System 447Q7. That system was surveyed and dismissed 300 years ago. There is nothing there but a dead rock world. There is something there now, Captain. Varel ordered his ship to approach cautiously. As they drew closer, the truth revealed itself, and Varel felt his respiratory system seize with shock. The dead rock world was alive with activity. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the planet, each one larger than the biggest Federation space station. Energy collectors harvested power from the system's star with efficiency that made Federation technology look primitive. Shipyards constructed vessels of designs Varel had never seen. And everywhere, there were humans. How? Varel whispered. How is this possible? His science officer pulled up historical data. The Federation survey from 3 centuries ago classified this planet as Class N, negligible resources, hostile environment, no colonization potential, high radiation, thin atmosphere, extreme temperature variations. Then how are humans living here? They are not living on the surface, Captain. They have built everything in orbit and in the subsurface caverns. Look at these readings. They have converted the hostile conditions into advantages. The high radiation provides energy for their fusion reactors. The thin atmosphere makes orbital launches more efficient. The temperature variations drive their geothermal power systems. What we saw as obstacles, they saw as opportunities. Varel's ship was hailed before he could fully process this information. A human face appeared on his screen, a woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Federation scout vessel. This is Station Commander Park of New Horizon Colony. You are in human-administered space. State your purpose. Varel struggled to find words. Commander Park, I am Scout Captain Varel of the Federation Exploration Corps. We did not know humans had established colonies in this region. That was intentional, Park replied dryly. We prefer to develop without interference. How long has this colony existed? New Horizon was founded 41 years ago. We were the 3rd settlement established beyond Federation borders. 41 years? Varel's voice rose in pitch. You've been building colonies in secret for 4 decades? Not in secret, Captain. In private. There is a difference. We filed all necessary claims with the Galactic Territorial Registry. We simply filed them for regions the Federation had already dismissed as worthless. Varel ordered his sensors to scan beyond the immediate system. The results made his respiratory system seize again. Energy signatures. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. Entire networks of human habitation spreading through Zone 447Q and beyond. Threading through all the empty spaces the Federation had ignored. How many colonies? He asked weakly. Commander Park smiled. Enough, Captain Varel. Enough to sustain our entire species indefinitely. Enough to build the future we were never allowed to have within Federation space. Varel reported his findings to High Command. Within hours, a full reconnaissance fleet deployed confirmed his discovery. What they found exceeded everyone's worst fears. Humanity had not simply evacuated Federation space and established a few refugee settlements. They had built an empire, 347 colonized systems, 2,000 major orbital installations, 15,000 smaller stations and facilities. A population of not 60 million, but nearly 300 million, meaning humans have been breeding and expanding in secret for decades. Industrial capacity that rivaled the entire Federation. Ships of unknown design and capability numbering in the tens of thousands. All of it built in the spaces between Federation territory, in the systems dismissed as worthless, in the regions no Federation species had bothered to explore because computer models said there was nothing of value. The computer models had been wrong. Or rather, they had been right for Federation species but irrelevant to human needs. Humans did not need perfect worlds. They built habitats in asteroid belts and thrived in orbital stations. They found resources in places the Federation overlooked and developed technologies to exploit environments considered too hostile for colonization. While the Federation had been congratulating itself on containing the human presence at 8% of its population, humanity had been quietly building a civilization that dwarfed anything the Federation had achieved in 5,000 years. Supreme Coordinator Vexus stared at the reconnaissance reports with horror. How do we not know? How do we not see? They wanted us not to see, military strategist Carvon replied. Every human who worked in Federation space was carefully placed. They took jobs that gave them access to information about our survey data, our exploration patterns, our territorial assessments. They learned which regions we had dismissed. Then they claimed those regions for themselves. But the resources required, High Admiral Corvin protested. Building this would cost more than the entire Federation's annual budget. Where did they get the resources? From us, Carvon said quietly. Think about it. Humans held most of the maintenance and logistics positions in Federation space. They processed our resources, managed our supply chains, operated our manufacturing facilities. How difficult would it have been for them to quietly divert a small percentage, 1% here, 2% there, amounts small enough that we would never notice in the vast scale of our economy. Over 40 years, those tiny diversions would accumulate to exactly the kind of resources needed to build what we're seeing. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not simply been working within Federation society. They had been mining it, systematically, patiently, carefully extracting the resources they needed to build their own civilization while maintaining perfect service to their Federation employers. We have been robbed, Counselor Thrain declared angrily. They stole from us while pretending to serve us. Did they? Counselor Yala challenged. Can we prove any theft? Can we show any evidence that humans took more than they were entitled to? Or did they simply excel at negotiation and efficiency to the point where they accumulated wealth legally while we assumed they were too primitive to matter? No one had an answer for that. The emergency session of the Federation Council convened again, but this time the mood was very different. Fear had replaced confidence. The question was no longer how to deal with troublesome humans within Federation society, but how to deal with a powerful human civilization outside it. We must negotiate, Vexus announced. Offer them full membership again. Offer them representation equal to the founding species. Offer them whatever they need to return and restore the functions they provided. And if they refuse, someone asked, they cannot refuse. They are still dependent on Federation trade, on our technology, on our knowledge. But even as Vexus spoke, he knew the words were hollow. The reconnaissance reports made it clear that human technology had advanced far beyond anything in Federation space. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their industries more efficient. They were not dependent on the Federation. They never had been. Ambassador Marcus Chen's face appeared on the Council's main display via a communication channel that humans had established, not one the Federation had found. He looked older than when he'd left the Federation, but also somehow lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Supreme Coordinator Vexus, Marcus said politely, the Council wishes to speak with me. Ambassador Chen, we have discovered the extent of humanity's development beyond our borders. We were unaware of your civilization's true scale. That was intentional, Marcus replied with the same dry tone Commander Park had used. We wish to reopen negotiations. The Federation made a mistake in expelling humanity. We see now that your species made vital contributions to our society. We would like to discuss terms for your return. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Return to what? Supreme Coordinator? To being 8% of your population? To taking the jobs you consider beneath your dignity? To asking permission before we expand or develop or grow? We would offer better terms. Equal representation, full citizenship rights, guaranteed territories. You would offer us what we already have, Marcus said gently. Freedom, independence, and the ability to build our future according to our own vision. Why would we trade that for membership in a society that never truly wanted us? You need us, Vexith insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. You cannot sustain a civilization without trade partners, without allies, without the knowledge and resources of the greater galactic community. Marcus smiled sadly. Supreme Coordinator, with respect, it is not humanity that needs a federation. It is the federation that needs humanity. Your infrastructure is failing. Your economy is collapsing. Your society is discovering that all the work you consider beneath your dignity was actually essential to your survival. We did not need you to thrive. You needed us to function. The truth of those words hit the Council like a physical blow. 60 years of assuming human dependence, of believing that humanity needed Federation acceptance to survive, and it had all been backwards. Humanity had been propping up a civilization that had grown too proud and too stagnant to maintain itself. What do you want? Vexith asked, the question carrying the weight of absolute defeat. Nothing, Marcus replied. We do not want revenge. We do not want conflict. We simply want to be left alone to build our own future. We wish the Federation well. We hope you will recover from the challenges you now face, but we will not be returning. And if we cannot accept that, Counselor Thrain threatened, if we decide that human colonies in unclaimed space represent a threat, Marcus's expression hardened. Then you will discover why we built our civilization in the places you thought were worthless. Counselor, because we learned from masters how to see value where others see emptiness. Because we learned to thrive in conditions you think are impossible. And because we prepare for the possibility that the Federation might respond to rejection with force. The implied threat was clear. Humanity had not just built colonies. They had built defenses. And given the technological advantages reconnaissance had revealed, those defenses would be formidable. The communication ended. The Council sat in silence, facing a reality none of them had imagined possible. The troublesome junior species they had expelled as an annoyance had become a power that could potentially challenge Federation dominance in the galaxy. And humanity had achieved this not through conquest or aggression, but through patience, planning, and the willingness to do the work that everyone else considered beneath them. In the days that followed, the Federation began the long, painful process of adaptation. They trained new workers for the positions humans had held. They relearned the technologies humans had operated. They slowly, expensively, inefficiently rebuilt the infrastructure humans had maintained. It took years, decades. Some things never fully recovered, but humanity had moved on, beyond the borders, in the systems dismissed as worthless. In the spaces between Federation territory, a new civilization flourished. It grew strong and independent and uniquely human. And the Galactic Federation learned a lesson that would shape its policy for generations to come. Never mistake patience for weakness, service for dependence, or silence for absence of power. Humanity had been silent as it left, but that silence had spoken volumes that the Federation only understood too late. Don't miss our next HFY story. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Like a humanity's quiet strength gave you goosebumps, and share to spread this epic tale. Let us know in the comments what you think happens next.